times as high as adult unemployment. Against this background, it doesn't make a lot of sense to speak about a labor shortage. Countries that have an old age population do not have a labor shortage. In general, they may have a shortage of specific skill sets. They may lack engineering skills, if you like. But to address a specific labor shortage requires very different policies than addressing a general labor shortage. A general labor shortage we could address by postponing the retirement age, or postponing the age at which people can draw pensions or social security, which the United States has done. A specific labor shortage requires more specific measures. Companies must be able to hire skilled workers from abroad, if need to be. But most importantly, countries must invest in the skill set of their youth population. Also, whether economies grow or not does actually not depend on the size of the labor force. Much more important than the size of the labor force is how productive people are. To give you an example, the German central bank estimated that to compensate for the effects of population aging, labor productivity would need to increase by 0.6% per year. Labor productivity increased over the last 10 years by 2.7% per year. Economies that have a large old age population have been able to grow. And even despite the economic crisis that many countries find themselves in, which is not attributable to population aging, but rather to bad economic policies, countries today have more resources, more goods, services, and income than they had in 2005, let's say. Countries have the capacity, the economic capacity, to finance pensions and healthcare. So there's not really an economic constraint to that. The constraint is rather a political and social constraint. Pension systems and healthcare systems are means to redistribute resources within societies, between younger generations and older generations, between current generations and future generations. And it's really a question of social consensus for what kind of redistributive mechanisms countries settle. And what's an acceptable social consensus in, let's say, Sweden, would never be an acceptable social consensus in a country like the United States. There is not really, from a macroeconomic perspective, a constraint on financing and caring for an increasing old age population, as long as countries, or especially when countries are growing their economies. Much more danger, much bigger danger than population aging is bad economic policies that make countries slip into economic crisis or prevent them from getting out of economic crisis. In the end, whether we want to care for older people is a social question that each country has to settle for itself. And to be sure, the alternative to aging is worse.